Okay, hi. Oh, you look like you got this written down now. We'll get it.
Steve Shivers with Citizens Climate Lobby.
Okay, hi, Steve.
Okay, once you're president, what will you do? What priority will you give to address our deepening climate crisis and to remove nuclear weapons from this earth?
Okay, good question, Steve. Let's start with a basic fact, and that is climate change threatens every living thing on this planet. And we're running out of time. Someone asked me not long ago, what's the scariest thing to you about climate? And to me, it's the fact that every time the scientists run the numbers again, we have less time than we thought we did. It's worse than we thought it was. They think of another reason why the crisis is upon us. So I see this as we got to move forward on all fronts, and we got to do it as hard and fast as we can. I love saying this. I will do everything a president can do, love it, all by herself on day one. And that means things like, these are the things within a president's control. No more new mining or drilling on any federal lands. We're just not going to do it. Respect our Native American tribes and say not only do they have control over their tribal lands, all adjacent federal lands, they make a decision first about what happens. I've got a plan to support our national forests and national parks with 10,000 volunteers from across this country to work on internships in them. Lots that we can do. But the real change is going to have to come. Oh, wait, I got one more I can do by myself. How about no coal lobbyist for head of the EPA? So I'll do it all. I'll do everything that can be done on the first day by executive order or by nomination. But the big change is going to take Congress. So let me tell you why I start where I start. I start with fighting the corruption head on. Because if we don't disrupt the power of the oil companies, if we don't disrupt the power of the big polluters, oh yeah, we'll get through some things that'll have great titles, like Saved the World, but that have the loopholes, that have the not so much, that will have the long term if it's convenient for you and doesn't hurt your profits. And we just simply can't afford that anymore. So I start with the anti-corruption bill. I want to introduce that anti-corruption bill on the first day, and this is where I count on all of you. I want to have an army mobilized across this country. Everyone, whether your issue is climate, whether your issue is gun violence, whatever is your issue, healthcare, I want you in this fight so that we beat back the corruption in Washington, we knock back the influence of the lobbyists, and then we can make the big change we need to make on climate. That's what we got to do, and on every other subject. So quick on climate, because I love talking about this, but let me just do a couple of really quick ones on climate. Here's one. We got to be willing to use regulation. Three industries that we can pass regulations and say, look, by 2028, you can't build any new houses or buildings that have any carbon footprint. By 2030, no new cars, light-duty trucks with any carbon footprint. And by 2035, no electricity that has any carbon footprint. All electric production has to be carbon-free. 3 industries. We put those 3 regulations in place. We cut our carbon footprint in America by 70%. 3 things. So let's do what's effective. Now, that's not enough. We got to go after the rest of it, but let's start there. Let's be willing to pick up those tools and use it. And then a second point I want to make. We got a problem. Let's say we go to zero carbon emission by 2030, 2035. We're only 20% of the world's problem. We have to find a way to lead the rest of the world. And sure, being in the Paris Climate Accord, yes, I'm all for it. It's just not enough. We got to have a much more aggressive plan than that, and I have one. So here's the short version. Increase by tenfold our investment in R&D on climate. Tenfold. Do what we do best. Why? Because there is an upcoming market for green. Green energy, taking carbon out of the air, out of the water, cleaning up the oceans, desalination. There's a lot of market for this. It's estimated to be about a $17 trillion market. So let's do what we do best as Americans. Let's do the R&D. Let's make that investment in our state universities and all across this country, people who are doing this work. That's part one. Part two is to say to anybody, you want to manufacture what we invent? Great. You're welcome to the science if you build it here in America. Yeah. American taxpayers are going to pay for the science to get this done. Then American taxpayers are going to see good American jobs, good manufacturing jobs, good union jobs to come out of this work. That's what we're going to do. Best estimate is that's about 1.2 million new manufacturing jobs in America, and that gives us a whole bunch of new allies in this fight. And then part three, we're going to not only sell this stuff here in the United States to clean up, we're going to sell it or give it away all around the world. Because the one thing we have to understand is we are running out of time on climate. We got no more time to fool around. No more time with the lobbyists, no more time for this plan versus that plan. It's all of the plans because we have a moral obligation to save this planet in the last few minutes that we have the opportunity to do so. So, thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Senator Warren. My name is Lauren Lukaszewski. Thanks for being here.
Did you say Maura?
Lauren.
Oh, Lauren.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Lauren.
Thank you so much. So first, I want to thank you for agreeing with all of my opinions.
Oh, good.
So
Don't you love that?
you've made
when you
it so
just say,
easy.
that person is so much smarter than I thought.
Yeah, she just made it so much
Love it.
easier for me. So I feel like I'm in a situation, and I don't think I'm alone, where I have to choose between my dreams, owning a house, having kids with my spouse, and my values, having a job, doing something I actually care about, as opposed to having a job that'll pay the bills, right? So the job that I have right now, in order to go for my dreams, so I can pay for them, is I'm actually a director of a team that works for a national healthcare system. And our team's entire purpose is to fight insurance companies to make sure we get paid what we're owed, right?
Good.
And we're losing. We're losing. So I don't think people realize how complex our healthcare system is and what a mess it is. I'm willing to hand you my job if you can get us universal healthcare.
Okay.
I'm absolutely fine with that.
Good.
But I don't care how you're going to pay for it. In fact, I think it's awesome that you came out with a plan where you do not. I mean, that was insane. That was awesome.
I know.
Don't have to raise
Not
taxes.
going to cost the middle class one penny.
Amazing. But how do you get it implemented in 4 years?
Okay, so it's a great question. And let's talk about this. Let's start, though, with the statement of values. Healthcare is a basic human right, and we fight for basic human rights. And I just want to make one little point off to the side. When people say, oh my gosh, this is really scary, and the Republicans are going to hurt us on this issue, I'm sorry. In a fight between people who believe in basic health care coverage for everyone and that other team that has voted to take it away from tens of millions of people and is trying to sabotage it at every turn, I'll take our end of that argument and we're going to beat the pants off them over it. We got that one. But you asked the right question. How do we get from here to there? And this is how I see it. I have one goal, and that is to start by getting as many people as possible, as much help as possible, as quickly as possible. That sounds like a good thing to me. So here's how it starts. Start with everything a president can do all by herself, including the cost of many prescription drugs. Insulin, how many people in here take insulin or know somebody who does, right? We can bring down the cost of insulin. We can use executive orders to come in and bring down the cost. EpiPens, we can bring down the cost. We can bring down the cost of these and many other commonly used drugs. And that's going to save millions of families, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars all across this company, and help ratchet down the cost in our healthcare system overall. So I'm going to do that all by myself. I'm going to defend the Affordable Care Act from the sabotage of the Trump administration. And then, you bet, I'm going to Congress, and in the first 100 days, here's what I want from Congress. And we can do this, remember, on budget reconciliation, 50 votes. Woman's got a plan, right? And here's what it does. It starts by saying, let's lower the age of Medicare to 50. Just bring it down. Anybody? Second thing, let's expand Medicare coverage. So it also includes dental, vision, hearing, and long-term care. It's huge. So that takes care of most of our folks over 50. For anyone under the age of 18, we'll just give you Medicare for all. We can do it at no cost. Cover every one of our children in this country. We can cover a family of 4 with an income below $50,000, and we can do it for free. Just Medicare for all. Why? Because I've already got the pay-fors, right? And we can let anybody who wants to buy in to Medicare for all do so at a very modest price, because I've figured out how to pay for this. So here's the thing. My view is in the first 100 days, we can give tens of millions, about 130 million people altogether, the opportunity to have Medicare for all, expanded health care coverage through Medicare for little or no cost. We can bring people in over the next couple of years, and people get a chance to try it. What it's like to make a health care decision with just your doctor and you, and your nurse practitioner, or your mental health specialist, or your physical therapist. No insurance company to stand in the middle and say, no, I'm sorry, that doctor's not covered. No, we decided you don't get to see that specialist. No, we're not actually covering that prescription drug. Not doing any of that. Just letting healthcare decisions be between patients and the people who provide healthcare. That's what I'm going to aim for. Once tens of millions of people all across this country have done it for a year, for a couple of years, we get into that third year, then it's time for us to get together and say, come on, let's transition everybody into Medicare for all. I think that's how we're going to get this done. That's how we're going to do it. I have a lot of faith in the American people on this. Thank you, Lauren. That's a great question. Hi.
Hi, I'm Wendy.
Hi, Wendy. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Well, Bailey is my dream first dog.
Oh. I just want you to know, day before yesterday morning, I gave him a bath so he would look just right, and then took him over to get his picture made. Yeah, he was really not a good dog. But Bailey's always a good boy. He just has variations on how that works.
Yes,
So,
of course. Well, and so I'm, wanting to try to talk to my family members who sometimes will describe themselves as being somewhat fiscally conservative, and I want to know how I convince them that big structural change right now is actually a somewhat fiscally conservative thing.
I love it. What a great question. So here's a couple of things that you might think about. And I know what you mean. You were very kind to say somewhat physically conservative. I like that. I just want to say, remember my 3 brothers, whom I love very much? One's a Democrat. Do the math. But here's what I like to talk about with my brothers. I talk about what's fair. in this country, because all four of us kids, man, we got a big fairness bone somewhere. And I talked to them, for example, about that wealth tax. And what I always start with my three brothers on is I say, you know, the 99%, which includes my three brothers, right? And maybe some of you. The 99% this year will pay 7.2% of your total wealth in taxes. The top 1/10 that I have asked to put in that 2-cent wealth tax, they will pay 3.2%. I am tired of freeloading billionaires. Let's level the playing field. Here's another one, Medicare for all. Here's another one. So if we do nothing in our healthcare system over the next 10 years, ordinary folks are going to reach in their pocket and come up with about $11 trillion in out-of-pocket costs. That's health insurance premiums. This is people with health insurance, right? Deductibles, co-pays, uncovered expenses, about $11 trillion. This is what the experts tell us. I figured out how if we ask the top 1% to pay a little more, if we ask the big corporations to actually pay some taxes, oh, and my personal favorite, if we squeeze the tax cheats a little bit harder, we can cover that whole 11 trillion. And then I want you to think about for just a minute, you know how that other team always is talking about tax cuts? And how, woo-woo, they came up with $1.5 trillion tax cut for big, right, for giant corporations and bazillionaires, right? But they like to talk about tax cuts. Think about what it means if you don't have to spend $11 trillion over the next 10 years. That is like an $11 trillion tax cut for working families across this country. $11 trillion. And then just remind your physically conservative cousins and brothers and uncles what that $11 trillion means when it stays in your pocket, or the 2-cent wealth tax, what it means when someone isn't having to pay $562 a month on a student loan payment, or what it means when someone says, I can actually get childcare, which means I can go to finish my education or go back to work, right? Every one of those says instead of leaving that money concentrated at the top, we can actually put that money straight back into our communities, straight back into our families' pockets. We can boost this economy by just asking those at the top to pay a fair share and then making that investment in the rest of America. We can do this. We can do this. I hope they like this. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. That's a great question. So this is great. You all have been wonderful. We'll do selfies in just a sec. I want to tell you one more story before we go. I want to tell you a story about a toaster. You did not see that coming. Now, when I was a young mom, toasters could start house fires. Now, this is true. Those little toaster ovens didn't have a shutoff switch. So it was possible to pull out the tray, put 4 slices of bread, put the thing, turn it on, hear the baby cry, go back to the other end of the house, spend a little more time with the baby than you thought you had, come back, and the bread has flames leaping off it that are 8 to 10 inches high, right? And if you're really unlucky, it catches the curtains in the cabinet on fire. Ask me how I know this. All I can say is, for Christmas one year when I was a young mom, my daddy bought me a fire extinguisher. Go, Daddy. Okay. So, a consumer agency came along and said, enough. Consumer Product Safety Commission said, you can't sell toasters in America if they've got like a 1 in 5 chance of burning down somebody's house. Done. They put safety switches on them, end of toaster fires that burn down houses. By 2000 in America, mortgages had become so complex and so dangerous. They had a 1 in 5 chance of costing a family their home. Not through fire, but through foreclosure. Only this time, the government was not on the side of the people. It was deep in the pocket of the big banks. So deep, they kept selling those mortgages, and in 2008, it crashed the entire economy. So I had an idea, a big idea. I said, let's have a consumer agency like the Product Safety Commission, only let's have it for mortgages, credit cards, student loans, payday loans. Yes, and yes. Oh, I love a nerd audience. Yes, my people. Okay, so I had this idea, and I went to Washington, and I tried to talk to as many politicians as I could about it. And they told me basically the same two things. First, that is a great idea. You could actually make change, structural change. And second, don't even try. Don't try, because you'll be up against big money. You'll be up against big banks. You'll be up against the Republicans. You'll be up against a bunch of the Democrats. You'll never get it done. I get it. Big structural change is hard. But it was the right thing to do. We took on the big money, we took on the big banks, and in 2010, Barack Obama signed that agency into law. Yep. I love it. Yes. And by the way, what you're applauding for, that little agency, has already forced big banks to return more than $12 billion directly to people they cheated. We can make government work for the people. So, Lizzie, what did you learn from this? I learned that even if the big banks don't like it, even if the big money doesn't like it, even if the big donors don't like it, we need big ideas to solve the big problems of our time. We need big ideas to inspire people, to get them out and caucus and get them out and vote. We need big ideas to be the lifeblood of our party so that everyone knows who and what Democrats will fight for. We need big ideas to take back the Senate and put Mitch McConnell out of a job. Yes. Yep. We need big ideas, and we need to be willing to fight for them. I get it. It is easy to give up on big ideas before you ever start. You can sound so sophisticated, so smart. But here's the thing. When we give up on big ideas, we give up on the people whose lives would have been touched by those ideas. And people who are struggling to pay their medical bills, they're already in a fight. People who are getting crushed by student loans, they're already in a fight. People who are getting stopped by the police because of the color of their skin, they're already in a fight. And those fights are our fights. Our country is in a crisis. And Washington insiders, media pundits, a lot of folks in our own party don't want to admit it. They think running some vague campaign with some promises that nibble around the edges is the safe strategy. If the best that Democrats can offer is business as usual after Donald Trump, then Democrats will lose. We win when we have big enough solutions to meet the problems in people's lives. There it is. So, I'm not running a campaign that was shaped by a bunch of consultants. I am not putting forward some plans that were carefully crafted not to offend big donors. I passed that a long time ago. I'm running a campaign based on a lifetime of fighting for working families. I am running a campaign from the heart because I believe that 2020 is our time in history. Our time to win the fight for a Green New Deal and save our planet. Our time to win the fight for Medicare for all and save our people. Our time to win the fight for a 2-cent wealth tax and invest in an entire generation. 2 cents. I believe that 2020 is our time. And if you agree with me, then I'm asking you, please, tonight, commit to caucus for me. Commit to be part of this fight. 2020 is our time. Dream big. Fight hard. Let's win.